Good to be taking another trip with you down the road. We got a lot planned for you today. What's in the mindset? What's in the psyche of these ex-military members that were attacking our capital? We're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're also going to get a chance to talk about the anti-vaccine bills and some of the legislation that is going through the North Dakota legislature that makes absolutely no sense at all. And we're going to visit with a Fargo school board member about that. But I've been looking forward to this. I have known this woman. I got to know Deena Butcher first off in the North Dakota legislature is how I got to know her, because she was there and being an advocate, and Deena was a Republican and I was a Democrat, and we were able to just sit down in the Great Hall and talk about things and talk about what can be done versus what needs to be done versus a lot of that way and what things we just can't even do. But she was always willing to have that conversation, and I appreciated it. So let's bring her in and let's take her down the road with us if we can. Deena, good to have you coming down the road.
I love going down the road with you, Did.
I have to tell you, every now and then we'll text each other just because we'll get so frustrated. And I'll need to talk to you just for you to bring my level down a little bit, Deena. I mean, you're still staying quite active is my point.
I try to. I think my mental capacity has not deteriorated to the extent that they're putting me in the home.
No, it has not. In fact, you did one thing that the North Dakota legislature has needed for a long time. You and a number of others, bad blank grandmas, decided to take on the ethics issue in the North Dakota legislature. And I loved it. You made a lot of people nervous, and they knew you wouldn't be able to pass it and put it into North Dakota's Constitution, but you did pass it and put it into North Dakota's Constitution. So first question for you is why? Why did you think it needed to happen?
Well, so much has changed since the oil boom. When you and I used to be in the Capitol, and I was a lobbyist, and or when I was working for several Republicans in the state Capitol, there was not the huge outside influx of influence and money. And we were seeing how that affected a lot of what was happening in the Capitol behind the scenes. So there was a group of us that were, it was not based on Republican or Democrat. It was just people concerned with the deterioration. And quite frankly, on my part, the supermajority that has, it's like an echo chamber. You don't get two sides of the story. So the ethics issue was big because we need transparency in who's buying our elections and who's buying those awful ads. And that's part of it. But we need an ethics commission to review some of the behaviors, the trips that people were taking that were being paid for, and then legislation that was passed that favored the groups that were paying those trips. So that's part of it. We heard from a lot of people, and this is not on the local level. This doesn't cover the local level municipal governments. But we heard from a lot of people in communities that was mirrored where they were, too. That's up to them to figure out how they can do ethics measures in their hometowns and so on. But it was a sense that we got, not because we were righteously indignant about something that happened to us, but this needed to be done for North Dakota.
You know, when you look at this, Deena, there's a lot of talk about whether or not it needed to be placed where it was after it was passed, whether or not this couldn't have just been done through the legislature. What's your answer to those people who would say, why didn't you find a legislator, and why didn't you just have this hearing and then go forth and see if the governor signed it?
It had been tried for I don't know how many legislative sessions, and because it had a D behind the sponsor's name, it just didn't happen. And we knew that if it became within their jurisdiction, it would be the same old, same old. They would try to weaken it by statute, which is still happening, by the way. That statute, they're trying to do statutory things in controlling the Ethics Commission, which, by the way, is established with good members, and they're maybe having a slower start, but we'll see how that all works out. But they're good people, and it's a separate body of government. It's a separate branch of government. It's the Ethics Commission, and it's in the Constitution as such.
Well, in my particular case, and I raised this before as a perfect example, and you didn't run around using an example, and I thought that was one of the really solid things you did, was you didn't say, boy, it was driven by this case or that case, as you just said, but overall, what needs to happen. But I like to bring up a case. And so I'll be that person. There was a legislator out of Fargo. His name is Jim Casper. And Jim accepted a trip. I want to get the name of the country right, but I think it was Antigua. And he accepted a trip from there. And what their goal was to get North Dakota to where gaming is completely legal. In other words, it would be no different than New Jersey or Nevada or any one of those states. When he came back, you know, I, as a talk show host, asked him a number of times, who paid for your trip? How much did they pay for the trip? I couldn't get an answer. He said that has nothing to do with it. To me, that's an ethical issue. That's an issue where if somebody's going to fly you to their country and fly you back, and then you're going to say, look, we're going to take North Dakota and turn it into Little Vegas, I think that's an ethical issue. I should get to know who paid for his trip. So I'm not going to say to you, boy, do you think that that's a tough issue, that that's one that would drive something like this, but is that one where I should get to know who paid for the trip?
Oh, I think so. I mean, they're supposed to. I would think that the legislature would have wanted them to post these kinds of things, that they would have had their own ethics rules, just like the Bar Association does and the Medical Association does, that they have rules for their legislators. And they did say that they have those rules, but they just weren't being enforced. And that's what's it's come down to, is that they may say that they do have people file where they took the trips and who paid it for them, but I don't believe that.
So do you think that this has changed, even though you said a slow start, it's getting going, good people on the Ethics Commission, but do you think it's already affected change? Do you think that there's people already going, look, I don't want the Ethics Committee to know about this, I'm not doing that? I mean, have you seen some of that?
Well, I hear people using that as an excuse. Obviously, the pandemic has curbed any of those kind of legislative functions that might have been covered or not covered by the ethics rules that are in place. And they are still evolving, actually, because the transparency part did not go into effect until this year of the article. So there is still evolving rules and regs that the Ethics Commission needs to pass, and there is legislation pending to help them with some of those issues. But the question, whether it has curbed people, I hope so. I think it can, you know, for lobbyists, it really levels the playing field because they don't have to compete with each other. Who can give the coolest shot ski, whatever they call the doodads you guys would come away with. And I'm sure you have quite the collection of those things from your time in the legislature that you're probably selling on eBay now.
Some of it's a great way to sight in your deer rifle. I'm just telling you that. And yes, you know, yes, I went on trips. I did. I was awarded trips through EPSCoR and Midwest legislators and all of that. So I'm not trying to be something I'm not. The truth of the matter is, I always felt that the public should know those, though. But that doesn't mean that I never was bought a beer or a whiskey. So I want to be upfront about that, Dina.
You know, when I worked for the Ag Commissioner, I mean, he was on the Industrial Commission, and I was the deputy, and I got treated royally by some people. And I do not, you know, I am not a holier than thou person. I admit that I have weaknesses, and that I have done some of these things myself. But maybe that's why we know, Joel, that there is a way that you can be transparent without giving up all of the fun of being in the legislature, which actually shouldn't be all that much fun. You should be there doing business of the people and getting it done instead of getting sidetracked by some of these issues that suck all the oxygen out of the room. And then you don't get down to the brass tacks till the last few days when the public doesn't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Here's my rant.
I want to talk to you about as an active member of the GOP for years. What's happened to your party? I mean, when I look at it on a national scale and I look at what Donald Trump has done to the GOP, I have a firm belief that if a large number of senators vote to convict Donald Trump in this impeachment, that if they do, basically convict him, the GOP is going to be split. You're going to see people actually talking about a new party. And so my question is this, you may not agree with what I just said, but what in the heck has happened with the grand old party?
It became about power versus doing the will of the people, what's good for the country. And it meant that you had to hold on to that power by whatever means. And so when our legislators, when our totally Republican three went to Congress, Mitch McConnell was dictating the terms for them getting reelected. And you've heard the story from so many people that these guys have to spend a third of their time raising money for their next election and for their colleagues' election. That's why they all form PACs, so that they can have influence on others and all that sort of thing. But I don't believe that we should even be talking about parties. I think in this time when we're about to put a new president in the midst of a pandemic, that with a huge imbalance in our in what's going on in trade in the world today, there should be no party conversation. We should be talking about passing bills that are good for the people. And I'm sick of that on the state level. I'm sick of it on the national level. And that's why I think the GOP, I don't care if it splits into two parties, because right now it is two parties. It's the people with a conscience and the people who are about power. And I'm one of those with a conscience.
Well, we need it back. I mean, we need it back the way it was when you had a big say in what happened in the GOP. We need a good conservative party that believes in good government and not is owed to just one person. We need that. Dina, always good. Just great to visit with you. We're going to call again someday, okay?
I love that, Joel. I enjoy visiting with you, and your common sense. And that's what I'm about, is common sense and authenticity. It's what's lacking in politics today.
Dina Butcher, ladies and gentlemen. Tracy Newman's going to join us. She is a Fargo School Board member, and you know what? We're going to get a chance to talk to her about what's going to happen when it comes to these vaccine bills right after this as we go down the road.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Okay, let me give you a scenario. The scenario would include this. You, as a public health official, master's degree in public health, get asked to, and asked to, and asked to, and pretty soon you say, okay, I'm going to do this, and you run for or get appointed to the Fargo School Board. Either way, you find yourself on the Fargo School Board, okay? That's a big school board. That's a really big school board that has been criticized by many different groups out there. Groups who say you got to be in the classroom. Groups who say you can't be in the classroom. Groups who say I want my kid playing football. All those different entities have come at the Fargo public school system. Well, Dr. Tracy Newman is one of those individuals I just described. Dr. Newman, good to have you on with us as we go down the road.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, in my time in the state Senate, there were a couple of jobs that I said I would never, ever, ever take. One was a county commission and one was school board member. Those are tough, tough jobs. What made you decide to go on the Fargo School Board?
Well, thanks for the forewarning, Joel. That would have been helpful. No, I think a multitude of reasons. You know, I am a pediatrician, as you know. I was actually a high school teacher before going to medical school. I've always had education in my heart, and I just found it to be a calling to be a voice for children. They don't often have a voice in our community. And I think in roles like school board and being a pediatrician, we can really advocate for them when they need us.
So, Dr. Newman, settle in. You with your professionalism, are going to be a lot kinder than what I'm about to be. Because the North Dakota legislature, you just hope certain bills don't make it to crossover. And for those of you watching, what crossover is when they pass one house, they cross over to the other. And so there's a time during the legislature where a bill still is alive. What we're specifically going to talk about today is House Bill 1320 and House Bill 1306, two pieces of legislation that should never get to crossover, in my opinion. But I want to get specific on this. I want to talk about why on this. We're talking about bills that talk about anti-vaccination. And so, Tracy, I got to ask you about this because there's so many things. You know, money for education, reducing property taxes, all of those things that really need to be worked on. Why in the world are we having a conversation about being anti-vaccination?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Certainly, especially the one you mentioned, 1306, in reference to autism and potentially SIDS. You know, this has been 20 years in the making, and there have been millions of dollars spent and respent to prove that there is no link, especially between autism. So it does, I think this is no longer a question in the scientific community. It's no longer a debate. So it does seem a little bit of a waste of time and resources to be re-examining what has been, you know, so evidence-based proven in what we do.
So 1320, describe to people what that one does.
Right. So House Bill 1320, unfortunately, is looking to limit the requirement for vaccinations to enter childcare or school settings. And, you know, we know that all 50 states in our country have legislation requiring specific vaccinations for students, and most allow exemptions, which North Dakota is pretty fair with that. We allow not only medical exemptions, but also religious and philosophical. But you know, I think that it's important for a multitude of reasons. I could probably talk to you all day about this, Joel, but children who are not immunized, you know, are 35 times more likely to contract measles. They're nearly 6 times more likely to contract pertussis compared to immunized children. Both illnesses I've diagnosed and managed in my practice. And we know that this school requirement is really a driving force for kids to get vaccinated. I can certainly attest to that every fall when we get a rush of people coming in. Schools really serve as a point of contact for students, right? I mean, even those who aren't seeing healthcare regularly, I think pre-COVID, it was estimated 97% of North Dakota children attended school. So it was a way to reach them regularly. It was a way to have parents be accountable for this. Not to mention that schools are potentially a source of outbreak and potentially a source, you know, that would benefit the most from having vaccinated children.
So this isn't new that you have to be vaccinated to be in the school. I mean, do you think that sometimes people forget that? I mean, the first thing that you know that people had to find out before you went to school is whether you had your vaccinations. I mean, talk to people about the history of all of this, Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, we have been vaccinating in North Dakota for many years, you know. I mean, it dates back to 1827, I think, but in North Dakota particularly, immunizations were first required for school entry at the start of the 1975-1976 school year. And today, like I said, all states require that. I guess I'm unclear why we're still talking about it. It's a highly effective way to keep children safe. You know, the beauty of vaccines is it not only keeps the person who receives the vaccines healthy and safe, but those around them as well. I mean, kind of analogous to the mask mandate we've just had. You know, it not only protects the wearer, but it protects other people, especially in big congregate places like schools.
Dr. Newman, I don't know your politics, and if you're smart, you'd never tell me yours. That isn't the reason for this question. But how frustrating is it for somebody like yourself that is really involved in science? I mean, you are a doctor. You are a pediatrician. How frustrating is it for you to see masks and vaccinations used as a political statement rather than a health statement?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And interestingly, we're living in probably one of the most polarized times, you know. I mean, I think in the beginning of this pandemic, there was maybe even a little hope that this could be an opportunity for humans to come together and all fight this virus together, and especially advocating for children. But as you state, it sadly has become a very heightened political time. And that's really not what public health is about, right? I mean, public health is here to protect us all. And sometimes that requires mandates when we believe that the good outweighs you know, any risk or something like that. I mean, this is not new. You talked about mask mandates and vaccines, but, you know, we have laws. You can't get in your car and drive drunk, right? Because that's not good for you. It's not good for other people. You can no longer smoke in public places. We have car seat laws. We fluorinate the water. I mean, all of these are examples that public health has just taken mandates to keep our communities safe. And particularly when it comes to vaccines, you know, sometimes I think we're victims of our own success because we've been so successful that this generation of parents has maybe not seen some of the diseases that we're preventing. Their parents have, and they remember, but we've been so good at eradicating this that it's almost scarier to have a needle in your baby's thigh than to actually think of the disease you're preventing. It's that far removed. But it's important to remind ourselves that every disease that we vaccinate for still circulates in the world and exists today. And when we see decreased decreased rates, go down below herd immunity, we have outbreaks, right? I mean, we've had measles outbreaks and pertussis outbreaks in this country in recent years because of that.
So I've got a minute left, so I have to ask you this. When you go out and testify against this legislation, if the legislation were to pass, how would you deal with it as a school board member?
Well, I can tell you Fargo Public Schools is strongly opposed, especially to 1320. And I think we would just have to do our best to positively advocate that people still do what's best and stay healthy and really rely. I mean, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us the importance of relying on experts and not emotion, relying on evidence. And I hope they would listen to what public health experts recommend.
So would I. So would I. We're sitting here talking to a public health official, a physician, and someone who serves on a school board. And if that doesn't give you the credentials to be in that room, I would think that the credentials would be a little too stiff. Doctor, thank you. Thanks for serving on the school board. I've got a second grader and a kindergartner in your school system, and thank you for looking out for them.
It is truly my honor and my pleasure. Thank you so much for highlighting these issues today. We appreciate it.
And I want to stress those are my grandchildren. That's how old I'm getting. So thank you, Dr. Newman. When we come back, Megan Myers is going to join us. She's Pentagon Bureau Chief with the Military Times. Why are so many active or retired military involved in that riot, in that insurrection? We'll talk to her about it right after this as we go down the road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Thanks for still going down the road with us. I've been looking forward to this interview since I found out she was willing to come on. Megan Myers, who's Megan? Well, she's the Pentagon Bureau Chief with Military Times. Let's talk to her. Megan, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Describe to people what the Military Times is so they understand.
So Military Times is kind of like a local neighborhood paper for service members. So if you think of the military as a town where there's all kinds of issues going on, we just cover those issues. We do a lot of pay and benefits. We do a lot of lifestyle stuff. And basically just kind of cover the policies that the military is always handing down, which are, of course, numerous.
Well, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you is because of that audience, because of the fact that each and every publication you get a chance to visit with military, ex-military, and people that have counted you as the connector, the lifeblood when it comes to the military itself. Now, we saw what happened with the insurrection. I'm going to use words that I use. You can go ahead and avoid those words all you want. Obviously a riot. Obviously, in my personal opinion, an attempted coup. But nearly a dozen ex-military members were among those arrested in connection with that riot. What's going on? Why?
So this is a really complex issue. It's something that think tanks, something that journalists have been trying to kind of get their arms around for a few years now. In the case of particularly this situation when we're talking about Trump supporters who are former members of the military, obviously most of it just comes down to politics. Even when you're in, the military, you're allowed to vote as you want to. You're allowed to have your own politics. And of course, when you get out, you can have all kinds of, opinions that you not necessarily could have had when you were in uniform. I think for a lot of people who identify with Donald Trump, who identify with his politics, who identify with his movement, it's very easy from a military mindset to think, well, I obey the orders of the commander-in-chief. This is my commander-in-chief. He has said we should march on Washington, D.C. He has said we should march on the Capitol and we should try to disrupt the counting of these votes. And so that's what they did. Obviously, he didn't tell them to hurt anybody. He didn't tell them to break windows. That was their own license there, obviously. But a lot of them felt like they were following the orders, of the commander-in-chief, whether they're in uniform or not anymore.
But with those military members, with the way that they were trained to defend this country, and with that mindset, being told by the commander-in-chief that they were, by doing this, defending this country, should have it surprised anyone that they did exactly what they did do, which is do something that caused them to be arrested?
I don't think it was surprising to a lot of people, and I don't think it was surprising to a lot of people that that veterans were among the people that were there. Especially, we see Zip Tie Guy, who is a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel. He knew what he was doing. There are people who went in there and said, we're going to clear the building. We're going to secure the enemies. In this case, they believe that those were members of Congress, members of the Senate, but they could take that military training that they had and apply it in this way that it was never intended.
Some of them are using that military experience as a reason for not being detained until trial. They feel because they were a member of the military that they shouldn't be treated as any other citizen would be once they are out of the military. And I'm curious how that mindset works and whether or not you believe there's any it's valid at all.
Well, I think, having that military training, that military experience probably makes them feel like they've been vetted, as it were, in some ways, and that, people should know, the FBI should know that they are safe and they are patriots and they are only doing, what they have been trained by the U.S. government to do. Unfortunately, that's not what they were trained to do. They were not trained to disrupt democracy or our constitutional processes. But it is surprising that they would think after all of that they should be treated differently because of their service. That's something you see from time to time in people who have served, but in this situation, it is pretty ironic.
So who's the 3 percenters? What do the 3 percenters represent?
So the 3 percenters who we don't have a lot of evidence that this is like predominantly the people who were leading this charge, but they are part of this right-wing movement, if you kind of want to group everybody into that bucket together. And basically, 3%ers come from this since debunked legend that only 3% of American colonists joined the revolution and tried to push out the British. That's not true, but that is some lore that these people have latched onto. And essentially, they believe, that they are here to lead the revolution. I think the basis of that ideology, of course, comes from being extremely pro-Second Amendment, weapons ownership, and the idea that anybody who would infringe upon that is an enemy of the Constitution. And then that builds out to this kind of militia movement that you see that is very far right, but again is kind of based on, anti-government intrusion. And they're kind of loosely associated with each other all throughout the country. But the basis is basically being against government intrusion and doing military training to prepare for something like that. And unfortunately, that can appeal to people who have been in the military, and they also like to recruit people who have been in the military because it gives them an air of legitimacy.
So, if you look at the numbers in this election, the military has always voted predominantly Republican. They have always voted quite conservative. They see it as a defense of the nation. As you mentioned, a Second Amendment issue. They understand weaponry. But this election, not so much. I'm not saying that it voted for Joe Biden, but it came a lot closer to 50-50 than what it ever had before. So prevalent. How prevalent is this, the 3%ers and the individuals that are pushing this theory and recruiting, and how much of this is going on in the military?
So this is not a widespread movement anywhere, and it's certainly not a widespread movement when you are in the military. Having said that, a lot of these right-wing groups will encourage their followers to join the military for the free training, and then, of course, for the free legitimacy after they get out. Like I said, they will try to recruit people who've been in the military because they know that they already have this training. And again, they appear to be vetted. They are considered patriots already because they've served their country. So it's not a widespread thing, especially for people who are still in uniform. However, the militarization of these groups, the fact that they wear, military surplus gear, they love to wear occupational camouflage pattern, which is what the Army and the Air Force and some special operations units wear. And so that kind of makes them military adjacent already, and that gives the Defense Department a lot of pause because, of course, they don't want to be associated with that. But when you have these people who might be veterans, but even if they're not, they're wearing the same gear that, soldiers are wearing, that's confusing to people. And that association is not something that the military wants.
Okay, so I have about a minute left, but I have to ask you this. What does the military do about it? What do they do to crack down and make sure that people know that quite frankly, this is treason, in my opinion? What does the military do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
So their number one policy is basically messaging. They've been doing a lot of messaging in the past couple of weeks to make sure people understand the distinction between your political beliefs and what you do in uniform, and the difference between a commander-in-chief giving what you might interpret as orders and your oath that you take to the Constitution. The other thing that they do is they work very closely with the FBI so that if there are any cases of these people in uniform or out of uniform, if the military is investigating them, they will let the FBI know. If the FBI is investigating them, they will let the military know. But they haven't shown a lot of push to really get their arms around it in the sense of tracking it centrally so that they can easily say, this is where the issues are, these are the problems that we have, this is how many investigations we've done, this is how we've handled them. They haven't really gotten it down to that bit of science the way they do with other things, the way they try to follow sexual assaults or the way they try to follow suicides. They haven't really put it on par with those things.
Something tells me that they are about to. It won't shock me if that's where the emphasis goes after this. Megan, there's a reason that you're where you're at because you know what you're doing. Thanks for coming down the road with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
When we come back, Terry Jones Who is Terry Jones from Newtown, North Dakota, state representative? Well, let's have a conversation, but I'm going to warn you this ahead of time. He doesn't belong on Jeopardy. We'll go down the road together some more right after this.
Howdy, folks. It's a County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Well, you're still in the rig, and we're still going down the road together. Want to get a chance to visit with you a little bit about one of North Dakota's legislators. Now, here's the thing. I served in the legislature for 14 years. Believe me, the bad ones come and the bad ones go, but it's tougher to get the bad ones to go away when they're Republican. That's just the truth. North Dakota is a red state, and it's gotten nothing but redder. I get it. I understand it. I don't like it, and it hasn't been good for it, in my personal opinion, because we end up making national news that we never should make. Let me give you an example of what I'm getting at. Terry Jones. You don't know who he is, but you need to know who he is. Terry Jones is from Newtown. He's a state representative, and he was one of the, well, he is the individual that went about putting through legislation that, when challenged on, as though it was racist, said that many of the black people that he has seen and spoken to, those black individuals are happy that he read about, I should point out, those black people are happy that their ancestors came to America. Think about that for a little bit. Those black individuals are happy that generations before them, that their ancestors came to America in chains, ladies and gentlemen, in chains, and put into slavery. You think that all those individuals are happy that their ancestors came to America? I mean, that's the depth of this well that Terry Jones is. Now, let me give you another example. This country is a powder keg right now, a powder keg. Everybody's wondering what can happen. There's a video going on out there, and that video makes reference to the fact that you can use God as your armor to defend Donald Trump. Same kind of crap that we were hearing before the riot, before the coup, the attempted coup, and before the insurrection. Same kind of thing. So what does Terry Jones do? He gets this. Oh man, I get this. I'm a member of Alex, and I'm a member of this group that on the far right, we need to get this information out to all Republican legislators. Well, take a look at this video. Just take a look at it.
Now we are calling for a great reawakening. When decent people and nations become bystanders to history, the forces of destruction only gather power and strength. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
Do not underestimate us and do not try us. This would be a fatal miscalculation.
Is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. There should be no fear. We are protected. We will be protected by God. I know that each of you will be a warrior for the truth, will be a warrior for our country and for your family. I know that each of you will do what is right, not what is the easy way. Our answer will be the rebirth of devotion to defeat the enemies of humanity.
This is a very different administration than the United States has had in the past.
It's all code, ladies and gentlemen. It's all code. It's all done in a way to dog whisper, to just send out the type of things that certain people react to. We saw that. We just visited with someone who understood it and who got it and who realized what it did to certain members of the military, for example. That's what this video is all about. That's what this video is all about. This video is about spreading it, about getting it into as many people's hands as they can. This video is the very reason that we're building walls around the Capitol. This very reason is this video is the very reason that we have more troops in Washington, D.C. that we have in Afghanistan. This is the reason that we have more troops in Washington, D.C. than what we had after 9/11. It's things like this. It's the Terry Joneses of the world that want to empower, that want to encourage, that want to do everything to get people riled up and to make sure they go in and use that armor, that coat that they have, and use the name of God to do what Donald Trump wants them to do. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. That's why we saw our capital being torn apart. That's why we see our country being torn apart. This election wasn't stolen. This election was fair. In many of those same places where Donald Trump says the votes were taken away from him, the Republican senators won. The Republican congressman won. I don't get how we're sitting there okay with the fact that we feel this election was stolen when there's all kinds of evidence given by Republican secretaries of state that it wasn't, that certified this election. So what do the Terry Joneses of the world do? He knows his audience. He knows who he's talking to. You just wink, wink, whisper in their ear. You give them a video like this and you say, you know what? You can make up your own mind, can't you? You can make up your own mind. He's helping them to make up their mind the way he wants them to make up their mind. That's what's going on. And who better to do that than to call in his fellow Republicans in the state legislature? Now, I know a number of them, and they're not going to fall for this. I know a number of them that wouldn't fall for this. I know Chet Pollard. I served with Chet Pollard. Chet Pollard doesn't stand for what happened in that Capitol. I know Rich Wardner. I know the majority leader of the North Dakota Senate. He doesn't stand for what happened in that Capitol. He doesn't take a video like this and spread that cancer around until, you know what, it festers, it takes root, and then, you know, it kills the America that we all know and love. I refuse to listen to the majority party on a couple of things in Washington, D.C. I refuse to listen to them about Christianity. I'm a Christian. If you're not, that doesn't make you a bad person whatsoever. Those are your beliefs, and you're entitled to your beliefs. But I refuse to take lessons on Christianity from people who use the Word of God in the way that Terry Jones just did. No. I refuse to ever listen to the Republican Party talk to me about the national debt again. No, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to believe it. I refuse to listen to the Republican Party say we have to come together right after they supported the very people that tore at mine and your Capitol. Right after they voted for and supported Terry Jones. Terry Jones from Newtown, North Dakota should be kicked out of the North Dakota House. At the very least, he should be censured. Whatever steps could be taken to send a message to Terry Jones that he doesn't belong as one of our leaders needs to happen. I'm doing it here with the format that I have. I'm doing it in any way possible between radio and between TV. I want you to know who Terry Jones is. I want you to know the kind of man he is. I want you to know that he would have been on the steps of that Capitol. When we come back, some closing thoughts for you as we go down the road.
Howdy, folks. It's a Canline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Canline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
It's been good having you come down the road with us. Just a couple of things, maybe mechanical, whatever you want to, however you want to take them. Today we had some discussion on different things from the North Dakota legislature. I have no doubt we'll have more as that process continues. It goes on till May, and so it seems to go on longer each and every year. So there'll be some bills that are idiotic, and there'll be some bills that are good. And there'll be some bills that are about as boring as possibly can be, but they'll involve money. And so we'll have some conversations about all of that. Today, critical, right? We're critical. We talked about the anti-vaccination bills that are making their way through the halls of the North Dakota legislature and how ridiculous those bills are. If you don't know about them, how do you make an argument against them? And so we're going to use the format of Down the Road to point them out. And to point out that, you know what, those Republicans that are doing this are so arrogant about the fact that they are that strong in the majority that they can do anything they want and not have it get noticed. That's what's going on. They can be anti-vaccine. They can use the whole "this was a joke." You know, here's the thing, folks. A lot of people are dead because of COVID. 5 of my friends are dead because of COVID. So for them to pretend that this is some political statement or a joke, we're going to make sure you know about it, that they're doing it. We're going to make sure that the Terry Joneses of the world get pointed out this legislative season right here on Down the Road. We're going to make sure you know about it because CBS nationally picked up what Terry Jones did. And we sat there seeing North Dakota's name being used in an idiotic way just because of the Terry Joneses of the world. So yes, we're going to bring that into the discussion. We're going to make sure that you get a chance to get specific information about it. Because you know why? You've got a cell phone. And you can call. And you can make a difference. And you can call your local legislator. And believe me, they listen when you call. Just strictly out of re-election fear. It's been good riding with you, folks.